she focused a lot more on Donald Trump, I think it's fair to say, than she did on many specifics in terms of what she would do as president. But she did go into some of her plans for small businesses and the like. Of course, with only 13 days to go, and Trump and Harris fighting over these last few undecided voters, and in fact trying to get undecided voters to even vote, we'll see whether or not she achieved what she needed to achieve this evening. Dana Bash, your thoughts?
Well, I'll just tell you what I'm hearing from people who I have been talking to, and that is that if her goal was to close the deal, they're not sure she did that. And, you know, some people have asked, is she being held to a different standard? Maybe, but that's maybe the world that she's living in. And on the question of who she is, people are understanding that a little bit more, but what she will do, the question about her legislative priorities, name one, there wasn't one. You know, some more of her personality and her sort of character questions about your weaknesses or what mistakes did you make? Not necessarily the answers there. Having said that, any time that she can be in front of an audience and interacting with voters is a win as far as her campaign goes, and they are very happy about that.
I thought her drawing the contrast with Trump, something that she has been really trying to do in the last several weeks that we've seen, where she's gone after him as unstable, unfit for the presidency, saying he doesn't belong behind the seal of the office anymore after he suggested terminating the Constitution. She had a new angle for that tonight, and that's because of John Kelly, his former chief of staff, coming out with his on-the-record comments yesterday, saying he met the definition of a fascist and that he's admired Hitler. That was something that she was within seconds of taking the stage. And that first question from Anderson, where she said that, yes, she agrees Trump is a fascist, where she took that moment and tried to really sharpen it and make news out of it from where, you know, she's been talking about this for weeks, but tried to draw that contrast even further for a lot of people, including the people in this audience who are undecided and maybe have not heard those comments or aren't familiar with what John Kelly has been saying. I thought it was really interesting that she came out of the gate and that was one of the first things that she was talking about in the town hall.
Although, John, I do wonder, I mean, I think after 8 years of Donald Trump, people are aware of Donald Trump's persona, his proclivity for controversy, his potential to offend, and the like. And I wonder if you think maybe she did too much of what Caitlin's talking about.
I think that is a fascinating question, is how do you balance it, right? How much time do you have with any voter, whether it's in a TV ad or it's in a town hall? In that time that you have, they're watching you. What is your priority, right? This is how much time I have. What do I want to tell you? How do I want to use that time? Donald Trump is more popular than he's been. He's now, in this race, his political standing is higher in this race at this point than it was in 2016 or 2020. And so she does need to push Donald Trump down. Okay. That is a priority. She does need to try to disqualify Donald Trump. Try to remind people who voted for Trump in 2016 and Biden in 2020, who are thinking about going back to Trump because of their pre-COVID Trump economy nostalgia, or he's done the job before and I don't know her. She needs to remind them of that. Then you got to quickly make that pivot. And to Dana's point, I think she did some of it tonight. I was about to say she didn't do enough of it, and then I thought she closed very strongly with the values part. She did the we the American people. But that's what voters ask you, who is she, right? The faith part was interesting. People at home might agree or disagree with it, but she talked about herself, what animates her, that she prays, sometimes twice a day, with a little smile. You know, that's not an issue for voters. That's not taxes. That's not abortion. That's not spending. That's not national security. But it's who is your president when hard things happen. And people just don't know it. That may not be fair to her. She got the nomination in July. She's a vice president. People don't know a lot about their vice president. Some of this has nothing to do with her. It's with her job and who she is. At the end, the value part, we get things done, pragmatic. Why does it have to be so partisan? There was some of it there. Where I think she fails sometimes is to connect it more to her policies.
Right.
This may be my fault. I've done 10 of these. So I'm always living prior campaigns and everything, 10 elections. You know, Bill Clinton ran on the same economic agenda she is. I'm going to raise taxes on the rich, and I'm going to cut taxes on the middle class. Democratic consultants at the time told him, don't do it. Don't raise taxes. Don't say you're going to raise taxes. They're going to say you're Walter Mondale. They're going to say you're Michael Dukakis. They're going to push you left. He had a brand where he could look people in the eye and say, I'm on your side. I'm fighting for the middle class.
Right.
Putting people first. That's the connection she has to make to that you can trust me.
Which is why she talks about her middle class upbringing
to do this. It's the personal part is sometimes missing. And again, it may be unfair to her, to your point about a different standard, because as she has not taken the time as vice president, or they did not let her take the time as vice president, to more develop her brand so that in crunch time you know who she is?
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to the questions from the voters, and a lot of them centered around the same couple of concerns. I mean, they're worried that she's too liberal. They want to know how she might work with Republicans. What would Washington be like with Kamala Harris as president? And you heard her repeat time and time again, she wants to be practical. She likes common sense solutions. She's willing to work with the other side of the aisle. I thought that was actually what she needed to do tonight. She needed to say that a lot in response to some of these questions. The thing I think that kind of got her tripped up at certain times was when certain voters were asking to drill down actually on some policy. And she didn't want to go there, didn't want to get into some specifics. And you might understand why that is, but it's tough for her because I think that comes across as evasive to some voters who are looking, they just want to know, are my taxes going to go up if I make $500,000 a year or not? It's very tricky for her. So, I thought that they knew what they needed to do, and she did it. But to your point, John, in a way, when she answered that question about what is my weakness, and the answer was basically like, I got a lot of inputs from a lot of people, and I like a lot of information, her answers read that way. I kept looking for what is the 30-second summary of this answer, and sometimes she would get to it all the way at the very end. It's really a kind of inverted pyramid sort of thing. She needs to get to that at the
That's why the
beginning,
immigration exchange
so that people understand
was so
what she's really about.
Because you talk about the economy, immigration obviously is the other number one concern that voters have. And when Anderson was talking to her, it was actually your town hall, Jake, that you did with her in 2019 when she said that the Trump's border wall was a medieval vanity project and that she would never support one, talking about in legislation on Capitol Hill. And obviously the bipartisan border bill that she's talking about, things change when you're actually in office and you're governing, that she would support has money allocated for the border wall, which Anderson, pressed her on. Do you now, and she was saying it's the way that Trump was trying to get it, obviously promising Mexico would pay for it. But that's a really important issue for voters.
Let's listen in because she's talking to.
Can we have somebody follow up with this gentleman, please? Okay. Hi. Thank you for your question. Thank you for the time. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Please.
Do you mind turning around? We'll just do a photo with Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And you know how I feel. This is the thing about the point on abortion. This is not a conversion, right? It's literally no one should be judged on any level, and it's just my point is the government shouldn't be telling people. It is not about ever disputing or criticizing anyone's faith. Ever. Never.
That's something to talk about.
Yeah.
When I look at the abortion question, we talk so much about the right of the woman in those situations, but there's another person.
Right.
And that other person is oftentimes
As long as it's not the government involved.
And that's the point. It's just that the government shouldn't be doing that, So, but I appreciate you asking your question and raising the point.
Yeah, and you have a role as a moral leader too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I'll send it to everybody. You want to squeeze in here?
Look right here, and then I'll make you send it to everyone.
Okay. Thank you all. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for the question, Jackson. Thank you all. Okay, take care, everybody. Thank you.